everybody, this is Leslie and I am going to show you in multiple parts how I am going to go about making myself a Disney envelope traveler's journal. So basically I did start a little bit. You're going to take an envelope. If you have the ones that have the metal piece, take that metal piece out. You need to make sure that that metal piece comes out. Doesn't matter if it rips because you're going to be putting paper over the top of this. So basically what I did was I, with my bone folder, opened up the areas of the actual envelope, even the bottom. Okay, because what I'm going to be doing is in the inside here, I'm going to be putting the Tyvek. I don't want to put it on the outside because I want to keep the outside looking nice and clean. I don't want the Tyvek to be on the outside. So that's why I opened up the envelope and put it on the inside. If you don't want to open up the envelope, you don't have to. You can certainly put the Tyvek here and then put your paper and stuff over it. I've just watched people and this seemed to be, I think, the best way of doing it, but there's a lot of different videos out there, so this is the way I'm going to do mine. So what I did was I took my scoreboard, my new scoreboard, and what I did was I measured the envelope. And it measures 12 by 9. So it's 12 by 9. So what I did was I cut it in half. So I scored it at 6 inches down, and then I go a ½ inch each way on each side. So I did ½ inch. So I did 5½ and then I did 6½. So this section here is where your Tyvek is going to go. This is where your signatures are going to go. I'm probably only going to put in either 2 or 3 signatures of maybe like 5 pages each. So that's why I don't need a large piece in the middle. So now for your Tyvek envelope, you're going to do the same thing as what I did with the other envelope. You are going to pull it apart, both top and bottom. You want to be able to use every single piece of this envelope because you only need one little piece of it. So what you're going to do is you're going to measure out . So basically I am going to need, I want to make sure I don't have anything there that's going to rip. So I think I'm probably going to do this way. I don't want to drop anything here. So you need 9 inches and 1 inch. So I am going to go ahead and cut that, but you want to make it a little bit bigger. So basically I'm probably going to add a half inch on both sides. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to need 2 inches to cover because you want it to come on a little bit on this side and a little bit on this side to cover that whole area. So I'm going to cut 9 by 2, okay, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I have my Tyvek cut, and as you can see, it measures just enough for covering both sides, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the envelope. So now I'm going to try this art glitter glue that I purchased. It is permanent, water-based, and non-toxic, and also dries acid-free. So what I'm going to do is I am going to put some glue down here. Use my finger. You want to make sure you get good adherence to these areas, and I think I actually need a little bit more here. Okay. Now remember that brayer I bought? That's what I'm going to use this on. Make sure it's all stuck down. So I'm going to add a little bit more there. Now this glue does work really well. Wipe your brayer, and I will put this back away. Oops, wrong side. Alright, so now that is in there, so what we are going to do, now I'm going to leave this open for now, but I'm going to gesso this top part, so we're going to do that. So basically I took the gesso, put it in one of my paint things. Now I'm just going to gesso. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this all, and you're going to put a nice light coat. You don't have to have a ton of it on here, but you do want to put this on here only due to the fact that gesso helps add tooth to the actual paper, but also too it helps keep moisture out of your paper. So that's why I like to have the gesso on there, because when you're dealing with paper, you want to make sure that you don't have moisture getting into your journal. Okay, so I'm going to finish this up and then we'll be back. Okay, so now the gesso is dried. What I did do was I did cut a little corner off of each end on the bottom seam, and I did glue the bottom seam back down. So see how you can see I mitered the corners? And then I did put a little bit of that in the inside. And what I did do is I did fold again, just to make sure that I had it folded properly. And then while I was away, I did cut my top piece and I cut my inside piece. This paper is the paper I'm going to be putting on the inside here. It did fit. I'm going to have to cut a little bit off. There we go. So I'm going to be gluing that in here, just on the inside. Then this flap is going to be your closure, but we'll show you that in a minute. Let me take that back out. So now on this side, which is going to be the outside, I have this paper, which is like a marbled pink paper. And I cut it to size. And of course you don't have all the way up to the end. So what you have to do is then cut out the flap piece. And you could put that underneath the paper. And then what you're going to do is you're going to glue this down. You can actually use Mod Podge for this if you wanted. I'm probably going to use, maybe I will use Mod Podge. So I'm going to do the inside piece first. So that one I'm just going to glue in. Take my bone folder, rub that down. Yes, it's hard to get in there, but when you have that gesso on there, it makes it easier to actually keep it held down. So that's good. So that's in there. You want to just make sure that it closes, and it does. So now we're going to do this side. I'm going to start with the flap. Alright, so I'm going to put my paper on. piece. Alrighty, now to line everything up. I'm going to start down here. Okay, and now basically you're going to do the same thing on this side. You're going to measure. You're going to find that where you have your seam binding or your Tyvek is where it's going to want to fold, but you want to make sure you fold it on the line that you did it. Perfect, and then we need this one. See, because then this is where you're going to be folding over. And this is what I'm going to be using for my closure. That's where this thing comes in handy, because you make really good seams. Yes, you can use a bone folder, but you never want to rip the paper. So this is what your outside is going to look like. So then basically what we're going to be doing is putting paper on the inside, and I'm going to be using that same paper that I put there, which is going to be this polka dot paper. So again, we're going to be measuring, and this is the one I had cut. I need the full page. Here we go. I'm going to measure this out. I've been doing it, but this one's been good because it's got the dots. Small full of glue. And then I'm not going to cut this part out. I'm just going to put this flat. You can if you want. If you wanted to cut that seam, you certainly can. I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it flat. So basically what I'm going to do is I am going to cut this next. You're going to use that scrap. And how I do that is, I'm not good at measuring, so I do it this way. And I take my pencil, make sure I got it good on both sides. I think I'm good. And guys, don't worry about it. If it's not perfect, it's not perfect. You're going to be embellishing this anyway. Okay. Because once you start embellishing it, that's when the beauty of your project is actually going to start to come out. And my suggestion is to get the cover completely decorated first before you start putting in the signatures. That looks a little funky. See how this looks. Okay, so we're going to glue this in next. So let's do that next. Just want to make sure I didn't have any glue in there. Edges close. make sure you don't have any bubbling. And then you got to do your folds again. And that's why you do those folds, because you want to make sure that you can see them. You can see how you can still see them here. Looking for that fold. You want to get that fold in there really good. If you get a little bit of bubbling, don't worry about that. Okay, so that's how you prepare your envelope. And if you see that you need a little bit more glue, you can certainly go in and add. Oops, not as much as I just did, but I'm just holding this to get the glue to take. And this glue does really well because it takes really, really quickly. Okay. So what we're going to do is clean up some of the edges. Let this dry really well. And yes, see how I have a crease and stuff here? Your best bet probably for this is, and I did not do that, if you glue the bottom part, I could have, before I put the seam down, I could have glued this so you didn't have any movement. Just basically that's all that is. But I'm not worried about it because, like I said, I'm going to be embellishing all that anyway. Okay, so this is the part one of preparing your envelope. So stay tuned. The next part we will start working on putting together our signatures to put in, and then we will I don't know, either that or we will do in part 2, decorating the actual cover. I think that's what we'll do on part 2. I think we'll actually do the decorating of the actual journal itself, and then we'll start putting the signatures and stuff together for part 3. Okay, so I will see you all in part 2. Take care, everybody.